Hi, this is Denise of PaperKraftD, and today is day 6 of the December Daily Advent 2025 with Tracy Fox. We are using the Festive Dispatch Ephemera Kit for this project, and my tag that I'm working with is this one right here. Okay, so I'm just going to show you real quick what I printed off for my project, and we can get started. All right, so I printed off, this page of tags. Again, this is the one I'm going to be using. I backed it with some of the green and white gingham. I did a double-sided page of the green gingham. I also did a vertical page of the postcard backs, which I again backed with gingham. And then I did 2 of these pages with the post box and these little envelopes. And I did not back these. And then I printed this page right here and this page right here. And my printer is an Epson EcoTank, and it has the ability to print 2 per page. So I went ahead and did that. So these are reduced sizes. Okay, so what are the basics that you'll need for this project other than, your trimmer, your scissors, and glue? All right, I used an X-Acto knife, and that's pretty critical to this project. I also had a black Sharpie and some distress ink and, a little foam pad. I used pumice stone just because that's kind of my go-to. And I also used a scoreboard that was really helpful for this particular project. Other things that would be helpful in this project would be a cutting mat, especially if you're using the X-Acto knife. If you have some tiny eyelets and a setting tool / hole punch, that's greatly helpful. You're going to need a little mesh bag. I also used some Velcro dots. If you want to embellish your project with some fake snow, I just used some little glitter, and I used some of this gold thread, but twine, whatever you have in your stash is great. Other things that might be really great with this would be some of those little brads from Tim Holtz, and whatever other kinds of die cuts, flowers you might have in your stash to embellish this. For example, I have this from Michael's. It's just some little holly and bells. None of that's absolutely necessary, but just things that you want to use to embellish. Also, some washi would be super helpful for this project. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to cut this tag out. I'm going to leave this white portion at the bottom intact, so I'll cut it out like that. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's cut out. I'm then going to take my double-sided gingham paper, and I'm going to use this as a template to cut out another tag of exactly the same size. So I've tried to measure this a couple different times, and I'll be honest with you, it just didn't work out. I think it's easiest just to go ahead and draw it out like this. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is mark the center of this tag right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing at the bottom of this. So I'm kind of finding the center of this post box. I am just going to use that center to kind of line up my tag here. So I'm only doing the sides right now. Okay, and now I'm just going to fussy cut from here up around the post box. Okay, so you're going to end up with something like this. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take this sheet right here, and again, this is double-sided, and I'm gonna just find a location on here that I think this looks good. And again, I'm using my original tag as a template to mark and cut out a tag on this page. So after all the cutting, these are the 4 pieces that we have. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is take my X-Acto knife, and I'm gonna cut just along these lines right here where these envelopes end. Okay, I'm going to first measure this 1/4 of an inch in because I don't want to go from end to end, it'll cut it off, right? So I just want to basically measure where the end point would be, and I'm gonna mark that on each of these. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife, so you see the lines here to this line here, and I'm not doing it really hard, I'm just doing it kind of lightly and doing several passes, and you see you just get a slit like that. Okay, so I'm going to do that for each of these. Okay, so then each of these has a slit like that. So you can see we sliced right through each of those tabs. In my first prototypes, I kind of went around the tabs, and I had mixed success with that. So, you can do, if you want to do that, go right ahead. I just wanted a little bit more texture and depth, so I'm going to use these 4 tabs here. So I'm just going to cut those out. And I'm scoring the tabs so that they fold easily. Okay, so now I have all 4 of those. The next thing I'm going to do is cut out this ephemera right here. Just, fussy cut it out. And I'm gonna cut out these envelopes on 2 of the pages. Okay, so now I have 2 of each of these envelopes, and I'm just going to glue them back to back. And I'm also going to glue these tags back to back so they're double-sided. Okay, so I forgot to mention, and I had to just peel it back a little bit, that I'm gonna add this little bit of gold string inside of each of these. This is easier to do if you do it before you glue them together, but I didn't. So all I did is I kind of twisted these up like this, and just put that right there like that. All right, so you end up with something like that. You can then go ahead and, snip these little corners here, and you can see like this one's a little shorter, so I'm just going to trim off the bottom. So you can just trim each of them, up so that they look like you want them to. And for these little envelopes, you might need to trim up these slightly if they don't exactly match up. And I also like to just take the very, very tip off of the bottom of each one and then kind of round it with my fingernail a little bit. Okay, so now that all of the pieces are trimmed, I'm going to take everything that I've cut so far and I'm going to ink them up. And then I'm going to ink up each of these slits, but I'm going to do them from the back so that, I don't kind of mess up the front. And I'm going to do the top and bottom of each of these slits. So you kind of end up with something like that. So you have a little bit more definition at each of those creases. Okay, so I found my teeny tiny little brads. So I'm pretty stoked about that. All right, so now is the point at which we can put the brads in here. So normally I would use my pokey tool for this, but this actually seems a little thick for this. So I'm just gonna use like a sharp pin. So I'm just carefully poking a hole in the center of each of those little nail heads on the front, and then putting the brad through there and flattening out the backs. Just going to use a metal snip to cut off the edge there. And you can see how cute they look. Those tiny brads really add a lot of dimension. All right, so I got all of those in there, and I just did this one side because that's the only side that will be visible. And then I'm going to put a little eyelet right in there. So crocodile really comes in handy for setting these tiny eyelets. That looks super cute. And now I'm just going to glue the tabs to the front of my tag. Okay, so I'm just lining these two little nubbins up there, and then I fold that over like that. Okay, so that's all there like that. And then I'm going to go back here, and I'm just going to put like a little line of glue on the underneath here. Just like this. So that's what we have there. You can see the dimension on there, just adds a little something. All right, and now I'm going to glue this onto here. But the goal is that each of these is going to form a little pocket. Okay, so I have to run a line of glue along this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, and then all around the edges. And I'm going to go ahead and glue this up here as well. All right, so here's what that's going to look like. Okay, and then kind of helps if you take this and like put it under a book or you know, something heavy-ish, so that you know, it gets nice and flat. Next, I'm going to glue this to the front of this, but first I need to just mark where the opening for this postal box is. And I'm just poking it now because that's kind of easier than cutting the whole thing out. And I want to kind of go around this area. I want to go down maybe, I don't know, ½ inch from this bottom hole, like maybe ½ inch down before I start adding glue there. I want it kind of up there a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the hole for the post box. Yeah, you can kind of see that it's whitish inside of that hole. So I'm just going to take my black Sharpie, and I'm just tracing along the edges of the slit so the white cardstock doesn't show through. And then I'm going to cut a strip of paper that goes inside that slit from the double-sided green gingham cardstock. Is this about the right size? Yeah. And then I'm going to score this at ½ inch. All right, I'm going to miter these edges, ink both sides of this, and trim the bottom of the strip so it's slightly shorter than the height of the post box. And then I'm going to just find the gap that we left between these two pieces of paper. I'm just going to slip this in right there and just add some glue on both sides. So the next thing I need to do is make sure these two tags are the same height. And I want this bottom part to show on here, so I'm just going to line this up. I'm just going to draw a line straight across like that. And I'm just going to score this right where I put that line on both tags. And then I'm going to turn each tag over, and if you remember, each tag has a double layer of cardstock. So I'm just going to be trimming the back layer of cardstock above that score line. And then I'll fold this back like that. There we go. All right, make sure these are the same height. Yep, those look good. All right, excellent. So this is scored at 1 inch, and then I'm gonna score it again at 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm folding this back like that, and then I'm folding this again like that. So it's a little Z fold. Z. And then I'm going to take this one, I want this flap here to be 1/2 inch. Just lining this line up with the 1/2 inch mark. And I'm just going to be cutting off that tiny little bit right there. All right, and so now I'm taking and putting the two sides that have the green gingham together. And I'm just going to glue this flap to this flap, just like that. All right, so everything's nice and aligned. All right, now here is where the washi comes in. So I'm just going to take a little bit of washi and kind of go over, you know, this part right here because, you know, it's kind of unfinished looking. Okay, and I can also go over these seams that are here to kind of reinforce them. All right, so this is what we have. You can see I've got this little strip here. So I could leave that as is. I could add a different kind of washi on top, but in my sample, I am going to add a strip of cardstock from the kit. Okay, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to sew along the border of each of these tags, and I'll be right back. Okay, so, you know, of course, sewing is completely optional, but I just like the added texture that it gives. If you don't have sewing machine, you know, you could just, you know, draw it in, or even do some slow stitching along the edges. That's an option. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna glue this puppy on right here. That's just a little metal star from Tim Holtz. Because again, I just like that it's adding a little bit more texture there. You can see it kind of has a little bit more dimension now, so that's kind of cool. And let's see, on the other side, I wanted to add a little bit of this snow glitter. You know. All right, so I'm just going to add some glue in some strategic places. This on here, and then just sprinkle this glitter over the top. And when it fully dries, I will remove the excess and it'll just be left in those few strategic places. Okay, so to close this at the top, I'm going to be putting a clip like this. And this is one I just, something I bought at Daiso. They're silver, and I just used some foundry wax in gilded to colorize this. And it's not perfect. It is very, very distressy, but I really like that look. I'm happy with that, so I'm just going with it, yeah. And my intention is to add some Nouveau glaze to the bird to kind of get that to pop. Maybe even this center portion, Christmas mail today, but I'm not going to do it now because I want to do some other things, and that'll take a minute to dry. Because I'm putting a clip here, I think I want to cover that up. So I'm camouflaging that little faux clip with a tiny little label. You know, and with these things, it's, you know, these kinds of collages, Tracy already has like an amazing collage going on. It's just finding ways to add a little bit more dimension. Okay, so I glued this little air mail tag on there, and I kind of offset it so it almost looks like there's like a little frame around it. And then I took this page flag and I put it on some thicker black cardstock, so it has a little teeny bit of dimension. I glued it on there, and also a little bit of definition because it's got some black around the edges. And then I used some black Sharpie up here, and you can see I slipped a little bit. So I was planning on doing this anyway, but now just the positioning of it, I'm gonna have to get it on there just right. But I was gonna put this little snowflake button on top of it. Okay, so I did fussy cut this out of here. I inked the edges, and then I went around the edge very lightly with black Sharpie. Okay, so now I want to put that there, right down here. So it has a little bit of dimension, but I want to make it a little bit more dimensional. So I'm just using like a foam core, something soft, whatever you have, and I'm just going to kind of, you know, take my pen and kind of go like this so that it kind of cups it a little bit, right? So you can see how it's a little bit cupped. And then I'll take my skewer or whatever you have that's kind of straight and like kind of curl back the each of the petals. So you end up with, you know, something like this, which is kind of, you know, a little bit more dimensional. So I'm just zhuzhing this up a bit by adding a stamen to the center of the flower and getting a couple little pieces of holly, and I'm gluing those on, poking a hole and putting the flower stamen directly through the hole. And the way I'm going to attach this is not only with glue, but on the back, I'm going to go ahead and use some washi to make sure that's well adhered. All right, so, you know, we do have quite a bit of dimension on here now. So that's kind of cool. And then this will go like that, just like that. And then the back side over here. Okay, so I'm just going to take some of this red seam binding, a nice bow across the top. Super duper cute. All right, so the next thing is we just take all these, remember these things we made? All these little doodads to go in here. I'm just, you know, finding ways to position them inside of here. Super cute. And the last thing we're going to be doing is adding a little Santa mail sack to the interior of the tag. And I'm attaching it with these Velcro dots. Velcro dots just from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm taking my little bag and I'm going to put it right on top there. Kind of burnish it down. There we go. And then put my little slide in there so it hopefully stays open. All right, I'm going to put my clip back on. And you can see that it kind of stays, well, it kind of stays upright, okay? I'm going to take my cute little mail, and I'm going to put it right inside the mailbox. Super cute. And then I'm going to grab my little pouch from inside there. And we've got this cute little Santa's mail pouch with the little letters inside of it. Isn't that cute? You can store all your little envelopes on the side with the pockets and then turn it over and put them in the post box. So much fun, I had to do it again. The other cool thing is that you can also just take, you know, this tag, fold the bottom up like this, and then you can just put it into any, you know, pocket that you have in your journal. Isn't that fun? Super cute. So you got that side, or you can have this side showing. Either way, whatever floats your boat. There you go. Isn't that cute? Super cute. All right. I hope you can tell how much fun I had making this project. Tracie's kits are a joy to work with, and the festive dispatch kits are jam-packed with absolutely gorgeous image after gorgeous image. You really can't go wrong. I'm going to leave links to both kits in the description box below so that you can get yours if you haven't yet already. It is not too late to join in. Don't forget also to check out all the other creators in this collaboration. If you liked today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave me a thumbs up and drop me a comment letting me know if you enjoy interactive tags like this, or just to say hi or to introduce yourselves, whatever. If you're not already a subscriber, I want to ask you why not. Genuinely, I'd really appreciate the feedback. But if you like this kind of content and what I've done today, please share my channel with your friends and subscribe. I really want to thank Tracie for inviting me to be a part of this December Daily Advent collaboration, and I want to thank you so much for sticking with me to the very end. Again, this is Denise with PaperKraftD, and craft on.